Good afternoon and welcome back to the AgriLand tent. We have our third tillage panel of the ploughing, and I'm joined now by Patricia Callan of Drinks Ireland and Seamus Duggan, a malt and barley grower from County Laois. Seamus, we might start with you. The topic today is drinks and malt and barley and grain in general to do with the drinks industry. So tell us about malt and barley on your farm. What does it mean on your farm? How does it fit into your system?
I suppose I'm a third generation malt and barley grower. My dad was an ex-grower, not an ex-grower, but a grower for the old Guinness contract, and my grandfather before, which was the Perry's contract. I suppose that has followed through, and I'm now taken over into what you call the Boer malt contract for Diageo and Watford Distillery and whatever they're using the malt for. So malting to me is very, very important. Our land is very suitable for malt and barley. It wouldn't be wheat land as such, and traditionally we've always grown malt and barley along with sugar beet. And since the demise of sugar beet, I suppose malting has become more and more important. It's a premium crop for us to grow. To grow everything for feed is not sustainable. It's, you know, you're quite confined now as to how you can make money from tillage, and really the malting is probably the best option we have at the moment. So as long as we keep the price up, and everyone says drinking, of course, as well.
And the price is settled there yesterday evening, Seamus, so it's about €174 of a harvest price, or if you were lucky enough to forward sell, it's up around 190. So is that okay on your farm? Is that considered premium?
Yes, I suppose looking at the way the harvest has gone this year, and looking at, you know, we're tied into world market prices on practically every product, and soya is dictating most of the grain prices here now, and maize. And unfortunately, you know, it has pulled the Irish feed price of barley back to, we don't know where it's going to finish up. Dairygold or Glanbia haven't announced the feed price yet, but we're thinking somewhere maybe 140, maybe 145, or maybe even less. I have to think upwards the whole time. But realistically, like when I started growing barley like 32 years ago, I think the first ton of barley I grew was £145 a ton. And if you equate that to euros, that's somewhere around €180. That's 32 years ago. Now it's the economies of scale, unfortunately. If you could survive on 50 acres of barley back 30 years ago, you possibly now need 300. And you know, every little thing with price is a huge bearing on how things are done and how things is going to go in the future. I think we're at a very fine limit at the moment, especially with the feeding barley, because at the end of the day, feeding barley and feeding wheat are the two biggest grains in this country. So malting is very important, and to keep it at a premium level, to keep growers interested. Other than that, it'll slip back into pasture, it'll slip back maybe into dairying, which is the new buzzword in farming in reality. And the tillage area will be swallowed up.
Yeah.
You know?
And Seamus, so Patricia, there is great opportunity there. The whiskey and the beer, whiskey in particular, the industry is booming. There's whiskey all over the world in Ireland, and you know there's been a lot in the press about geographical indications. Most recently, Irish whiskey gained a geographical indication in India. And that geographical indication is, maybe explain the importance of it. It's protecting Irish whiskey. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Sure. So the Irish whiskey industry is really undergoing a renaissance. So back 8 years ago, we had 4 distilleries. We now have 26 fully operational distilleries and a further 20 in planning. And part of that is the securing of the GI. And what that means is that our members, who are those distilleries, they fund us to have legal advisors to go around the world and to make sure that our geographical indication is actually registered in trade agreements, that it's registered as a copyright or a patent mark in various countries. Because what we found before, and what was the demise of Irish whiskey before, was when a product gets popular, then loads of fake products come on the market. So if we see fake products in Russia or in India or in Peru, then it's our job to actually go and to take legal action, cease and desist against those companies, because we want consumers to know that when they buy Irish, then they're getting a premium product and it's a guaranteed authentic taste. We have 3 GIs here in Ireland. We have one for Irish whiskey, we have one for Irish cream, and we have one for poachine, and they are all island. So it's really important in the context of Brexit that, again, both jurisdictions work closely to ensure nothing undermines that massive investment. Cumulatively, the drink sector is thriving. We export €1.4 billion worth of product, and we're known throughout the world for our great brands like Guinness and Jameson, and I think that's something that's good for us all. I think the interesting thing about our distilleries and our craft breweries as well is that they're located in rural Ireland. They're not in big cities, they're not in towns, and they're also adding tremendously to the tourist proposition. We now have 17 visitor centres. We've almost 3 million visitors to drink attractions. So there's a general win-win in this, so long as we can ensure sustainable growth and to protect those products.
And there is loads of money to be made from the Irish whiskey industry and beer. But there's the geographical indication, but then there's the technical file. And you mentioned the Irish taste there. But is that really an Irish taste? Because there's a lot of that Irish whiskey is made from foreign grain, foreign maize, foreign malt. So 100,000 tonnes of maize being imported into the country every year to produce whiskey.
Well, the geographic indication is around place and practice. So the technical file is the practice of how you actually make whiskey.
So there's no requirement to use Irish grain in that technical file?
No, there isn't. So traditionally, actually, a big part of the traditionality was the importation of maize going back hundreds of years. So it's always been a factor of production, and unfortunately we can't grow maize in Ireland. But however, the drink sector, as it's growing, is also growing demand for malted barley and unmalted barley. We are consuming 220,000 tonnes of malting grain, and roughly it's about 2/3 Irish to 1/3 import. And I think certainly amongst our smaller members, the difficulty is in trying to be innovative. You're looking for peated and specialist malts. We have 2 malting companies in this country who are operating at capacity. So we really need the government to look at the infrastructure around a strategy for the tillage sector and the drink sector to ensure we get quality crops that meet specifications which are very high, that then there is the malting capacity to deliver all that demand, and then to ensure that we can also innovate into other crops. So certainly in terms of some of our members, they're now looking at rye and wheat, which are crops that we can grow. But in order for the GI to qualify as Irish whiskey, you have to lay the product down, as in put it in casks, for 3 years and 1 day. And in practice, most people, again, looking towards the premium market, keep it for 10, 15, 20 years. So it's going to be quite a long lead-in time before we know whether that innovation works and whether the demand is there. But certainly the companies are very open. This is where we're going to differentiate is in these new products.
And there is great opportunity. We can grow wheat in Ireland that can replace maize to produce whiskey. Rye, maybe not so much. We have a threat of ergot in this country. Maybe it's not such a viable option, but it's good to see things in trial. Patricia, do you worry? I visited Canada recently. We went to the Niagara region, the Pelham Estate Distillery, and it was producing Niagara wine. It's illegal in Canada to produce Niagara wine from anything but Niagara grapes. Do you worry that we're making a lot of money from Irish whiskey, we're building an industry here? Do you worry that someday, for want of a better word, that it'll be found out that some of the grain being used is imported?
Well, all the geographic indicators, it's an EU system, so it's not a requirement. So the vast majority of EU GIs, there's nothing like that there. And if you take it that actually, and again, we're all about working with the farmers, but if we look at our animal sector, we import about 5% of what's imported for animal feed. So are you telling me that Irish meat isn't Irish meat?
Well, there's certainly plenty of opportunity to use more Irish grain. I suppose another thing is the imports that are coming in. We imported from, the Central Statistics said we imported malt from unknown sources, from Chusha. Chusha is a strait. It's a country 4,500 acres in size, and it's on the Strait of Gibraltar. That malt most likely came from somewhere in Africa, but we don't know where. Is that okay that we're producing drinks from places that we don't know where the malt came from, when we have farmers like Seamus producing grain to a very high and traceable standard?
Well, that's what's important to us, and as far as we're concerned, we are buying 100% of all the malt that's available in Ireland.
Yeah.
So we're at capacity. So the question is, how do we increase capacity?
Yeah.
Because what we've seen is a shocking decrease in the land under tillage. It's down 62% since 1985, and that drift has been because government is supporting other sectors such as dairy, and therefore the incentive is there. So what I'd love to see is the government to re-establish a tillage forum, or whatever you like to call it, but something that gives strategic intent to looking at this sector equally with meat and dairy. And that's obviously a climate agenda item as well. Tillage is a quarter of the climate emissions of beef and dairy. So I think in terms of addressing all of that. And the other point I'd like to make as well is that obviously our members have a lot of spent grain, nutrient-rich grain that then goes back into the farm system in that circular economy. And that's something I think, again, that we can really look to see whether we can do more with that as well.
We need to build a cycle and draw the sectors together. Seamus, Patricia is saying that the drinks industry are willing to, they want more Irish grain. First of all, can you supply more Irish grain? Can Irish farmers supply more grain? And do you want to, and have you room for it on your farm?
Yeah, there's absolutely no problem in supplying more grain. But we have to get a few things straight here first. Like, it's all very fine for the drinks industry to come out and talk about geographical indicators. And we have, I think it's a 72-page document. I read it back some time ago when it first came out. And I find it absolutely amazing. And you touched on it, Siobhan, there. It's what most Irish farmers that are growing grain, especially malt farmers, have a major problem with. We have this geographical indicator being put up as being the be-all and end-all for the Irish drinks industry going forward. But they're walking, to me and everyone else, they're walking on very, very thin ice. Because if you can put a 53-page document together and talk all about the manufacturing process, and as you said, the taste, it's all very fine. But the core thing that should have been part of the geographical indicator, it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, has to be the ingredient. And for the drinks industry to say it's fine, it's made in Ireland, it's made with pot stills, and this is the process we use, and that's enough to call it Irish, I think is very, very dangerous. Because the geographical indicator that's used for champagne, and we'll use champagne because it's a very obvious one. You will not bring a Belgian grape, you will not bring a German grape of the same quality, the same manner of grape that's used to produce champagne. It's called sparkling wine outside the Champagne region because they're protecting the name, they're protecting the product. We are here, I think we're dicing with fire because it is going to be caught out. How can anyone turn around in this day and age, talk about Irish whiskey, and with over 50% and possibly the ingredients being French maize, being maize from anywhere in the world, that anyone can question as to whether, is it, first of all, is it GM free? Where does it come from? It's definitely not produced in Ireland, and you're using a product, and it's now called Irish whiskey. I think it's really a joke, because at the end of the day, we have the capacity to produce the finest malt in the world. We've proved it this year. The stores can't take it. Poor malt, push it to the Irish farmer that we will give you what I call a miserable premium of €10 to get that thing right, and we've done it, and we have it, and we have any amount of malt for distilling.
I think it's a pity we had more time today, because I think this debate could go on, but I think certainly we've talked about a lot of good things today, and we've really learned that maybe the drinks industry, which gets a lot of coverage in this debate, are willing to use, really want to use Irish product, and that's extremely important. So thanks very much, Patricia and Seamus, and that's it from the tent for now. We're back out on site.